Hey, everybody, welcome back to the 1455 interview. I'm Sean Murphy, the executive director, and I have to say we continue to have a really fun time. We're starting to build a nice little repository of insight and wisdom from some remarkable writers. We're adding another remarkable writer and human being to today's episode, but this introduction will be longer than usual because this is very personal for me. Justen Ahren, in addition to being a writer that I admire and a human being who's inspiring to me as an artist and a person, is also very responsible for the vision of 1455 because he created the Noepe Center at Martha's Vineyard. And I was fortunate enough to visit in 2015 and have a transformational 2 weeks where I met him and other writers that I'm still good friends with. And then he made me the offer I couldn't refuse to be the writer in residence and help him manage for one season in 2016. And suffice it to say, that was sufficiently transformative and positive that I realized that something like that could and should exist in my home state of Virginia. So in very literal terms, without Justen's role being a role model, this whole endeavor might not exist. So it's with profound gratitude that I always have an opportunity to celebrate his influence as a positive person in my life. But also I love the idea of being able to expose him to people that may not have heard of him because he's a brilliant writer. So let me tell you a little bit about my friend Justen. Justen Ahren is a poet, photographer, and musician. His recent book, A Machine for Remembering, is a collection of poems and photos from his time as a volunteer rescuing refugees by boat to Lesbos, Greece. He's the founder and former director of the Noepe Center for Literary Arts. He teaches writing workshops on devotion to writing. For more about him, visit Justen Ahren, which is JustenAhren.com, and follow him on Instagram. And I'd be remiss to not mention, he also is about to be part of our initial workshop series. So once you see this, you're going to want a piece of this. Visit our website, check out our workshop series. Justen is teaching a workshop, and you have an opportunity to work directly with him, which I would encourage you to do. Justen, my friend, thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. I've really been looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it too.
Right on. Okay, so as ever, I'm all teed up, 1455. Let's get it on. Justen, the first book that made you want to be a writer or a book that changed your life?
So I think it had to be William Carlos Williams's collection of poetry, long poem, Patterson. And I think I remember reading that and thinking, you could do this with poetry? Like, everything I'd known about poetry up until that point, I had gotten pretty much in high school. So I was just out of high school, maybe first, second year of college. I came across this book when I was in Italy. I started walking around and I started writing that day, thinking, wow, it just blew open all of the parameters I had constructed around what I thought poetry was. And this was a new way forward. So that was the book.
That's fantastic. Who would you say your most profound artistic influence is?
That seems to change depending on what I'm working on. But with this last book, with Machine for Remembering, I really fell in love with the sculptor and artist, Alberto Giacometti. And really, I love his work anyway. I'd seen people may be familiar with his sculptures of really elongated, kind of rough, textured figures of men and women, usually walking or standing. But I felt like his work ethic, he worked every day in the studio for 8, 9, 10 hours every day, it seemed like, of his life, sometimes destroying the work that he was making that, he worked on all that day or for years, and he would tear it down to nothing. And the thing that I loved about what he said about his work is that he sculpted in order to learn how to sculpt. He didn't know what he was doing. And he maintained that through his life. And it was just a lesson to me when I sit down to write, that I'm still learning how to write. I don't know what I'm doing a lot of times, and I'm here to learn. And it's an opportunity. I don't have to make something finished when I sit down to work.
Right on. What about an album or movie that you recommend without reservation?
All right. So this is going back a little ways. Harold and Maude.
Ah, yeah.
Early 70s. I love it because it's just it's a great story. It's inspirational. It's just like, be you. You know, Cat Stevens did the soundtrack, and it's just quirky. And I love weird and quirky films like that. So Harold.
Plus, Ruth Gordon and National Treasure.
Right. Absolutely.
Amazing. Great. I love it. Best first or last line of any book?
So this was a tough one.
Impossible, right?
I had to think about this one a while, and I think I've settled on Gabriel Garcia Marquez, 100 Years of Solitude. Many years later, as he faced the firing squad, Colonel Aureliano Buendia was to remember that distant afternoon when his father took him to discover ice. And it's a short story in and of itself.
It's a whole world, and you share that. I believe it was Robert Anthony Siegel also gave that answer, and I think the three of us are in agreement.
Oh, wow.
And that speaks volumes, right? I mean, it's one of the most famous opening lines for a reason. It's everything. You can really say that without being trite. What is it about? It's everything.
Yeah. And again, there's a theme to my answers. I didn't realize it, but it's all about these what things have opened me. You know, like Harold and Maude is like, be yourself. Open me to that. This opened me to magical realism and to the, you know, I don't have to just write about I can extend myself as a writer too, and be whimsical. And this was, for me, when I came across 100 Years of Solitude, I knew I was in a different realm, and I was smitten, to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about an underrated author you'd like to mention?
So there's a wonderful Mexican novelist. Her name is Jennifer Clement. She's written several novels, most recently Gun Love, but before that, the one that kind of really got her on the map, it's not that she's unknown, but the one that really put her on the map was Prayers for the Stolen. She also happens to be the very first woman to be named the International Pen's president. So if you know the lineage of presidents of International Pen, you know what kind of writing footsteps she's following in. But she's brilliant writer, brilliant poet, as well as a novelist. So Jennifer Clement.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. I'll make a note of that for sure. Okay. Why have you not read Moby Dick? Or if you have, what's a classic that you've been meaning to get around to?
Did you know that I haven't read it? Can you put that one in there for me specifically?
No, everyone gets asked that, and it's asked half sarcastically, very self-indulgently, but I've got to know.
I know that I know it's, if not your favorite book, it's up there. I've tried. That's my answer. I can't get by. I know that there's things in there for me to learn. I know the novel has things for me to learn in it, the way it's built and constructed, but I can't get by the language, the speech patterns or something, you know. It's just it's a block. I wish that wasn't the case, but I haven't read it because I just can't seem to get past the first couple pages.
I'll work on you. We got the rest of our lives to figure this out. Would you say that there's a single theme or topic that your work addresses?
Yeah, I would say it's displacement and exile, some form of missing home, or not necessarily trying to get back to a past, but recover things from the past. A lot of my work happens in memory, or happens around memories, reconstructions of the past, but also a displacement from self, or from a greater sense of what it means to be human and who we are and what our purpose is. And so I think all of my work tends to hover around that theme of finding one's way to belonging.
If I may, I say one of the things that I adore about your work, Justen, is giving, because it's the impulse of so much fiction and poetry, giving voices to the voiceless, but you do so in such a deeply humane and beautiful way with language. You render otherwise obscure faces unforgettable.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you. So this is a gimme, and I'm actually gonna ask you to not go deep because this is what you talk about this, but do you believe in writing routines, Justen?
Well, yes. And so for me, it's every morning, cup of coffee, sit down, read. I always I'm always with a book next to me that I kind of read a few pages or a few poems of, and then it starts my own writing. Right now, it happens to be Mary Oliver's complete work, going through it book by book, and yeah, that spawns my own writing.
The reason we're both laughing is because Justin's written a lot about this, and you won't have to do too much research on the internet to see his beautiful writing about routine and a daily practice. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he might be teaching a workshop about that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to skip the next one, which is about writer's block, because again, you talk about how to transcend that. So I know you do and don't believe in it, but let's go right to the talk to us about a significant setback, artistic or otherwise, that helped kind of push you on this trajectory in your career.
So yeah, setback for sure was, at a young age, someone who I really respected told me that I couldn't write. And man, that shut me down for like a long, the rest of my teens, say. This was early teenage years. And I had to work my way back from that. And I wrote for a long time in secret and showed no one. And I think that's why I like to work with writers now. I think that's why it is kind of my service, my mission, I feel like, to help people write. And fortunately, I've had way many more people come forward since then who have encouraged me as a writer. And that has more than balanced out that, initial person who had no idea what they were talking about.
Of course. Well, and that touches on a theme that continues to resurface, not surprisingly, in this series, which is perseverance and the ultimate belief in self that repetition and confidence will build.
Yeah.
How would you briefly describe how you've developed your career?
I'd say by chasing it down. I just keep doing it. There's a great Annie Dillard quote. I can't remember what book she says it in, but she says, "How we spend our days is how we spend our lives." And I've known for a long time I want to spend my life writing. And so when I say chasing it down, I mean I just sit my butt down and I try to write. It's what I do with my time. It's what I love to do. I've known that, and I try to make that. I try to make as much time as I can in my life for that. Yeah, and the rest takes care of itself.
That's right.
It really does. If you're just doing it, you're going to find your community. You're going to find your publishing. You're going to find your outlets, and then it's in your life. Yep.
Beautiful. Define or explain what literary success means to you.
So there are two parts. So honestly, like if I'm just saying, I want a lot of people, I want people to read. I want an audience. That is definitely part of what is success, what I would think of as success. But a great friend of mine asked me this question: if no one ever read what you wrote, would you still write? Yes. And at that moment, I realized that I'm not writing for that. That's not success for me. Success for me is entering this kind of communion with my creative self. And when I can do that completely and bring something new to, the vision that I have for it and make it, and it works, and it's a thing of beauty to me, it feels that way to me, that is success. And as I've gotten older, that has become the only criteria. Not that I still don't have aspirations to publish and this and that and the other thing, but the thing is the work itself. The process is the success for me.
Yeah. And I've had the good fortune of seeing you live that life. And it's very inspiring, and it's why you're a very in-demand workshop instructor. So by the way, if you haven't gotten the message yet, you might want to take a workshop with this guy. What do you wish you had known as an artist 10 or even 20 years ago?
So that, I used to just only write when I was inspired, which meant I didn't write very much. And so if I had known, 10, 15, 20 years ago that it's practice, that you have to show up and, let the magic happen, I would have written a lot more than I did in those early times. Yeah.
Okay. The second to last question is, have you ever visited a writer's retreat? I will turn that around and say, talk about how Noepe happened, why you did it, and what it meant and continues to mean to you.
So I went to a writing retreat about 6 months before I founded Noepe. And I loved it so much that when I came back to the Vineyard, I started thinking I need to, and I had just finished my MFA too at Emerson College. And I was here on Martha's Vineyard where I live, and I thought, I need some way to bring community to the Vineyard. I want to be here, I have my family here. It's a beautiful place. I want to share this, but I want to bring writers here because, you know, I was missing that from the MFA, and I was missing that great experience I had at this writer's residency. And then, you know, as fortune would have it, as the universe would have it, people came into my life that offered me a space and this and advice. And, you know, next thing I knew, the only idea I had for this, Sean, and you know this story, but I'll share it with everyone. Yeah. The only idea I had was a long table, a big table with lots of writers, and we're having a meal and we're talking about writing. That was the only idea I had for this. And I literally built Noepe around that idea. I got offered a beautiful space, and that space had a long table that fit how many? I don't know, 12 people. We probably had more than that around there, Sean, right? Maybe 15, 20 people at times. Yep. And talking about writing and having beautiful meal, and that's how that came. So writing residencies, if you haven't gone, it's a real great opportunity to expand your community, but also to just sink deep into your work and to talk about that work process with other writers who are going through that same process that you're going through.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot in this series, and I've certainly talked a lot, you know, even before my Noepe experience, but much more convincingly, I think, and emphatically after my Noepe experience, which is this notion of community and what it means. And it means a lot of things, but I think what you showed me is in action how this safe, fun space for people that are very serious about their work can nourish each other and help each other and do what we want to do as humans, which is connect. And I think writers need that as much or more than anyone. So once again, in a very meaningful way, I feel like I'm carrying on a link between you and I, but a tradition that you helped me envision by seeing the hard work that went into that and the unbelievable rewards that came out of that kind of interaction.
Well, Sean, I know that when 1455 gets its, you know, residency up and running, it's going to have that, you know, community, because you bring it and you celebrate people and you're very open and welcoming. And I would say to anyone who's thinking about a writer's residency and going to one, who's watching this, you know, they're not all equal. They're not all created equal. Some of them are really competitive, and they have a reputation of that. So do some research. If you're looking for a community that's going to be supportive and it's going to help you grow your work, and it's a positive experience, you know, just look around, get on chat rooms, or, you know, do some Googling, and then you'll find, you know, you find them. They're not all the same. But I know, Sean, that 1455s is going to have that spirit of community when it's up and running.
Well, and in no small part because you're involved in it and will continue to be involved in it. So as I love to say, but with you more so than most, 1455 is not unlike the mafia, right? You come in and you can't get back out. So we're going down that road together, brother.
I look forward to those welcome dinners. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Final question. A 1-minute exhortation for a beginning writer looking for advice.
Write every day. First thing, make time, write every day. Read every day. Read in order to learn how it's done. So meaning find those works that here I am, I didn't read Moby Dick, even though I know that there are things in there. But, you know, find these works. Like I'm reading Mary Oliver's poetry right now. I'm learning so much about line breaks and about form and about how to turn, you know, from a simple observation about nature, a turn in a poem that expands into this kind of universal. And she does it so deftly, every single poem. So read those things. Don't read junk. Like, don't read your news feed so much. Read this work that within it, there are these voices that you'd like your own work to kind of not necessarily imitate, but that's fine too. Because you learn when you imitate. You learn how things are built. Um, like deconstructing a song, you learn how, oh, those are the chords, that's the progression. It teaches you when you want to write a song, how to write a better song, how to write a song like that really works, that has the hook. Same thing with your own writing. So that's the importance of reading. Send out your work if it's important to you. If it's not important to you, then don't bother. Send it out and don't be attached to whether it's published or not. But there are so many ways, if you want your work to get out there, there's so many places to put it out there now. This is not a requirement. It's just, if you want to do it, just send it. And then one thing that this does is helps you build a community, and then look for these ways to build your community, because this, in the end, your community of your friends, your peers, this is going to be what's going to sustain you in your writing life. Not just today, not next week, not this year because you got something published, but this community is what's going to really, it's going to be what you remember. These are the joys in your life, these people that you share it with. So that community. And I also say that we spend hours alone as writers with ourselves. I find this is such it's such an important part of self-making, of this self-relationship that we develop. The wonderful poet Joseph Stroud, in a workshop I took with him once, he asked, "What's the cost of writing?" And nobody had an answer. So he answered for us. He said, "It'll cost you your life, but not a life wasted, but one gained, because of the depths that you go to in that alone time that you have." It's like meditation. And so I've always carried that around too. Like, wow, that is really, that was really profound. So I just don't think you can be helped but be expanded by the practice of writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Justen, you are an advocate for the process and the craft. In closing, I would like to leave our audience with two thoughts. One, we live in an era, right, where there are no secrets. So we're ceaselessly reading about people that make this transcendent work are jerks in real life. It's so refreshing, and one of the things I've always enjoyed about Justen is when you read someone whose work you respond to and think, wow, what a deep, spiritual, beautiful person. And then you meet them and they are that. That's very rare and wonderful. So Justen's a tremendous role model. And I want to encourage you, if you are a writer at any level, looking for some encouragement and some very practical, very actionable advice and wisdom. Check out his workshop. Check out the workshop series we're offering, because it's designed to help. And check out Justen's work. His poetry is magnificent, and it will change your life. I'll throw that gauntlet down. His work will change your life for the better. So it's my honor to give Justen a little spotlight here. Justen, to be continued as always, but it means a lot to me that you always make time. We're always there answering the call. And I personally thank you for being, like I said, a tremendous role model for me as a writer and a person.
Well, thank you, Sean. You're a beautiful man and a beautiful friend. And I am very grateful. Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll see you again soon, brother.
All right. Yeah, we will.
Indeed. Take care.
See ya.